From the Gulf to the unemployment lines, from Kabul to Baghdad, America is facing many difficult challenges, and Democrats are facing a tough political environment. With the exception of Michelle, Sasha, and Malia, there's probably no one in Washington who knows President Obama as well as our guest this morning, the president's top political advisor and close friend, David Axelrod. David, thanks for being here.
Jake, thanks for having me.
So the president's popularity among independents is sinking. It's a real problem for him politically. 1 year ago, he was at 56% approval with independents. Now it's 38%. Why do you think independents are turning away from the president?
Well, first of all, there are all kinds of numbers out there, so this is one set of numbers. There are other sets of numbers. But look, I think I've said this to you before. When I sat down with the president and his economic advisors, a group of us in the middle of 2008, and they told us what was about to ensue and about the recession that we were well into at that point, I said to him, you know, your numbers are going to suffer here, and we're going to have a difficult election because these are going to be difficult times for the country. Our job is not, though, to worry about that, Jake. Our job is to worry about how we get people back to work, how we move this country forward. And if we do our job, the rest will take care of itself. And remember, elections, the presidential election is an eternity away. Elections are about choices, though. They're not referendum. And on the other side of the ballot in November will be a party that has an economic theory, and it was tested, and it led to catastrophe. We lost 3 million jobs in the last 6 months of 2008. The financial market almost collapsed. They turned a $237 billion surplus that Bill Clinton left into a $1.3 trillion deficit, and they're running on the same policies. So people have to decide, do they want to go forward or do they want to go back?
Okay, but you're a smart guy, and you know underneath these numbers are things other than the fact that we're in tough economic times. White voters in particular have developed an even stronger skepticism about the ability of government to perform effectively. And that's the exact opposite message of President Obama's campaign theme of a competent yet activist government. Do you think you overestimated your ability to convince the public that government can be effective?
No, look, Jake, you say that aside. You can't say that aside.
But it's not just economic fears.
No. When you're governing in a very difficult economic time, the worst economy since the Great Depression, and that's what we walked into, people are going to be unhappy, and they have a right to be unhappy. These are difficult times, and so this is not unexpected. And the best thing we can do is make the right decisions for the country, and that's what the president's going to do.
Well, let's talk about those decisions, because obviously there is what Democrats on Capitol Hill call spending fatigue on Capitol Hill. How can you and how can the president create jobs without there being any willingness on Capitol Hill to spend money to do so?
Well, I think it's true that there's not a great desire, even though there's some argument for additional spending in the short run to continue to generate economic activity. There's not a great appetite for it, but I do think there are some things we still can accomplish. I do think that we can get additional tax relief for small businesses. That's what we want to do, additional lending for small businesses. They're an engine of economic growth. We're hoping we can persuade enough people on the other side of the aisle to put politics aside and join us on that. Unemployment insurance, we ought to extend unemployment insurance.
You can't get the votes, though.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. But at a time when there's one job vacancy for 5 unemployed workers looking for jobs, clearly we have a responsibility to do it. The Republicans met that responsibility each time under President Bush when he asked for to extend unemployment insurance. They ought to do it. Now, let's not play politics with this issue, but there are many other things that we can do. One of the things that's driving us in a positive direction is exports. And the president talked last week about how we expand exports and steps we can take we are very committed to innovation in our economy and to spurring innovation. The president went on Friday to a plant in Missouri that is producing electric cars, and that plant would not be there but for the actions we took. The investments that we have made have leveraged 4 times on some of these clean energy projects, 4 times a private investment, and that's going to create jobs. He's going on Thursday to Michigan to a plant that produces advanced batteries for electric cars. We had 2% of the global market when he started. We now have 16%, headed to 40% by 2015 because we helped spur and leverage private investment, and that's what we want to do.
Why do you think 7 out of 10 Americans don't think the stimulus had a positive economic effect?
Because we're still coming out of a very deep recession. Remember, it took years to dig the hole that we're in, and the president was clear from the beginning it was going to take a while to come out of it.
Still, you spent more than $400 billion. Obviously, according to every economist, the unemployment rate would be higher, would it not be for the stimulus
of course.
Bill? But the American people don't believe that.
But Jake, we are still in the midst of a very difficult economic time. The fact that it's much better than it was when we took over does not mean that it's good. And we don't accept it that way. We accept the challenge of moving this economy forward, and we're going to keep launching initiatives, and they don't all involve spending. Things like patent reform is something that we want to pursue, so that small businesses and startup businesses with a good idea can move without the kind of bureaucratic obstacles that the current patent system provide.
Well, let's talk about the business community, because you're talking about things that they would like. But in the last few days and the last few weeks, the business community, members of it, have been voicing concerns about the Obama administration. Here's the CEO of Verizon and the chairman of the Business Roundtable, Ivan Seidenberg.
By reaching into virtually every sector of economic life, government is injecting uncertainty into the marketplace and making it harder to raise capital and create new businesses.
And the Financial Times reported that a member of the White House Recovery Board, General Electric CEO Jeffrey Immelt, in a private dinner recently, quote, had harsh words for Barack Obama, U.S. president, lamenting what he called a terrible national mood and expressing concern that overregulation in response to the global financial crisis would damp a tepid U.S. economic recovery. Business did not like the U.S. president, and the president did not like business, he said. Now, I know you reject the notion that the White House and the president is anti-business, but if that perception's out there and it's having an effect on the business community's willingness to create jobs, is that not a failure of the Obama administration?
Let's just review history here. When we took office, no, this is important.
Don't go that far.
This is important, Jake, because you have to recognize what the kind of there's no doubt that there was a kind of Katie bar the doors philosophy in Washington during the 8 years previous to us. And what it led to was a financial disaster. And all these companies were in very difficult straits. In fact, their profits are up 65% since that time over the last 2 years. Our financial system is now stable. Instead of collapsing, which would have been a devastating thing for every business in this country, large and small. But yes, and we're working closely with business, and we want to continue to work closely with business. But working closely doesn't mean that we simply turn away from the kinds of corrective measures that are necessary to prevent that kind of disaster from happening again. And that's what we're pursuing. We need a financial reform that is commensurate with the challenges that we saw, and we pushed for that. We need common sense environmental policies to prevent what happened in the Gulf, and you can't simply let industry in each and every case self-regulate. We're not micromanaging anything, but we are looking after the public interest.